before your alarm, before your feet even touch the floor, there's already a presence waiting for you. Not noise, but weight. That quiet tightness in your chest, that racing thought arriving before your eyes even open. Can I carry today? This is morning anxiety. It doesn't ask permission. It arrives as panic wrapped in routine, whispering what-ifs and worst-case scenarios before the sun has even risen. But here, in this sacred pause, you are not alone. God's message today is not about pressure, but presence. Not about performance, but peace. Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. Psalm 91. That is your truth before the day begins. You are not waking up weak. You are waking up in a world that demands strength before surrender. But heaven doesn't work like the world. Divine power starts with stillness. It whispers, "Let me meet you before fear does." So take a breath, not from panic, but from promise. You are safe. You are seen. You are held. You're not the only one whispering that silent plea. Across the world, hearts wake up with the same prayer. God, calm my anxious heart. One woman typed through tears, "Jesus, I need you to get through just the first 5 minutes of my morning." That honesty is holy. Because anxiety rarely announces itself clearly. It wears disguises: urgency, irritability, exhaustion. It loops the same fears. What if I forget something? What if I fail today? But Scripture doesn't demand perfection. It offers presence. You will not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day. Psalm 91:5. From the moment your soul re-enters consciousness, you are not exposed. You are already covered. God says you don't need to be okay first. You just need to come. That's what this morning prayer is. Not a retreat from panic, but a return to peace. Not a denial of fear, but a deeper embrace of divine truth that says, "I am with you, I go before you, and I will never leave you." Fear assumes the worst, but divine power declares what is real. This moment, right now, is your sacred turning point. The enemy wants fear to be the first voice you hear, but God's message interrupts. "I am your peace." Pope Leo XIV once wrote, "Divine power is not loud, it simply remains while fear tries to shout." That's what you're doing now. You are not pretending fear doesn't exist. You are choosing who has the final word. Jesus didn't always silence storms with a shout. Sometimes he slept in them. Because peace isn't the absence of chaos. It's the presence of confidence. That same confidence is available to you, not because this day will be easy, but because God never changes. Divine security doesn't depend on external calm. It flows from internal trust. And that trust is a gift, not an achievement. It means when your thoughts spin and your heart races, you are not failing. You are invited to return to the only shelter that never crumbles. You are being drawn back to the truth of Psalm 23. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." Anxiety is not your identity. It is not your sentence. It is a signal, a holy alert that it's time to come home to the one who made you. When your breath shortens and your body tenses, you're not losing faith. You're being reminded to lean on it. Meditation is not an escape. It's a realignment. It's the practice of placing God's truth above emotional weather. Because he has set his love upon me, therefore will I deliver him. Psalm 91:14. Every breath you take becomes a sacred act of faith. Each inhale speaks surrender. Each exhale releases control. You are not doing nothing. You are doing spiritual battle. You are telling your soul what your mind might still struggle to believe. I am safe. I am not alone. I am protected. Let this moment be your victory. Let this prayer be your new first thought. Not fear, not failure, but faith. Because God's message for your morning is not about effort. It's about invitation. Come as you are. Rest in who he is. And now we pray beyond ourselves. For those whose fear is not just emotional, but physical. For children waking under skies filled with sirens. For mothers and fathers whose morning prayer is for protection from war, hunger, or heartbreak. Lord, Be their refuge. Stretch your wings where walls can't reach. Be the presence that never leaves. Shine light in the darkest corners. Heal the land, heal the trauma. Let Psalm 91 rise as a covering over those who feel forgotten. Shelter them under your mercy. Let hope return to hearts hardened by survival. And remind us who have peace not to hoard it, but to pray it forward. You are not the God of sides, but the God of sanctuary. You are not far, you are here. You are near to the brokenhearted and mighty to save. And we who are safe in your arms, now lift our voices for those who need shelter today. Amen. What thought tries to take control before your feet hit the floor? What would shift if God's message interrupted fear? Can stillness become your first strength today? I will not fear the arrow that flies by day. His power is made perfect in my weakness. My morning begins in mercy, not in fear. Before the day moves forward, speak this aloud. God says, I release my fear. I receive your peace. Let divine power go before me. Then share this prayer with someone who needs peace this morning. Let today be the day fear bows to truth. There are mornings when your body feels heavy, but not from sleep. It's the weight of what hasn't been said, the pressure to be everything to everyone, the silent load of yesterday's unresolved fears. And in that moment, the voice of shame tries to whisper, you should be stronger by now. But let's pause here. You are not failing. You are human. You are not broken. You are burdened. You are not less spiritual because peace feels hard to find. You are waking up in the tension between your longing for calm and the chaos that surrounds you. But God's message today is not one of blame, it's one of covering. He who dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Psalm 91. That word dwell means to remain, to stay, to let your soul breathe without rushing. This morning prayer is not about proving your faith, it's about letting God meet you where you are, not where you pretend to be. You are already covered, already seen, already held. Divine power doesn't wait for you to be composed. It meets you in the unraveling. This moment is sacred not because you have it all together, but because you're finally willing to bring it all into the light. Anxiety does not disqualify you. In fact, it may be the very ground where grace grows deepest. God is not waiting for you to be calm before He covers you. He is not asking you to perform peace. He is offering it. Psalm 23 reminds us, He restoreth my soul. That restoration doesn't wait for perfection. It arrives in your exhaustion. Even now, as thoughts race and your chest tightens, divine presence remains. Pope Leo the King said, Moses once said, God does not wait for the noise to settle. He becomes the silence in which we breathe again. So breathe, not because the fear is gone, but because God is greater. Not because you feel strong, but because you are safely held in the strength of the Almighty. If your first thought this morning was, I'm already behind, know this, God is not keeping score. He's offering sanctuary. He does not measure your value by your productivity. He sees your invisible burdens, the constant mental checklist, the pressure to smile when your heart aches, the fear of falling apart. And yet, His message remains, let me carry what you were never meant to. Morning prayer is not for the polished, it's for the present, and you are here. You've shown up with trembling hands and a tired heart. That's enough. You don't need to be fearless to be faithful. You only need to bring the fear into God's presence. Psalm 91 is not a badge for the unshaken, it's a promise for the weary. And you, beloved, are not just seen in your struggle, you are sheltered in it. Covered not by effort, but by eternal compassion. So when your thoughts shout, why can't I just be okay? Know this, you're not alone in that question. Your anxiety doesn't make you spiritually weak. It reveals how deeply you long for safety, for assurance, for something stable. And today that something is someone. God doesn't push you away for trembling. He draws nearer. Morning prayer is where you stop striving and start surrendering, where you stop surviving and start surrendering. Cast your burden upon me, and I will sustain you. Psalm 55:22. That includes emotional burdens, mental burdens, invisible ones. Let your breath be your surrender. Let your stillness become your sacred declaration. I am not enough on my own, and that's okay. Because divine power is here, and in this stillness you are not escaping life. You're aligning with the one who sustains it. Let's pray. God, I don't come with answers. I come with honesty. I lay before you the weight I cannot carry, the thoughts I cannot calm, the expectations I cannot meet. I believe you meet me here, not with condemnation, but with comfort, not with demands, but with divine power. Let your peace guard my mind. Let your shelter hold my spirit. Let your word define this morning, not my fears. Amen. Take a deep breath. Place your hand on your chest. Let this be your first sacred act of trust today. Not fixing, but abiding. Not rushing, but receiving. Let Psalm 23 speak louder than the inner critic. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. You are not lacking. You are not too far gone. You are already held, already enough. In your frailty, God is faithful, and in this moment, that's more than enough. What burdens am I carrying that are invisible to others? How might God want to meet me in the middle of my emotional struggle? What would change if I stopped trying to be enough and simply received His covering? I am not broken. I am burdened, and God is lifting me. His divine power covers me before I move. I don't have to perform to be protected. God meets me in my frailty, not after it. Divine power surrounds me before I succeed. I am safe to be fully human in the presence of a fully faithful God. Speak this aloud. God, I surrender this pressure. I receive your peace. I believe you are holding me now. Then take 1 minute. No scrolling, no rushing. Let that stillness be your sacred alignment. Let this be the morning that peace takes the first word. Before fear has a chance to rise, let divine power rise first. This isn't poetic, it's protective. It's a decision to place your soul under higher authority before your emotions take control. That's what this moment is, not avoidance of fear, but alignment with truth. God's message today is clear. Let me speak before fear does. Anxiety will always try to rush the morning. It wants to be the first voice. It's loud, persistent, demanding. But it's not your master, not your shepherd, not your truth. God says, you belong to me, not your panic. That's why we begin with morning prayer, not as a spiritual luxury, but as survival. When you pray before reacting, when you breathe before spiraling, you're not just calming your body, you're anchoring your identity. This isn't performance, it's proclamation. Divine power holds me, not fear, not pressure, not perfection, just Him. You're choosing sanctuary, and sanctuary changes everything. Fear is aggressive. It pushes, it predicts, it demands, it wants the first and last word, but it doesn't get to write your story. God speaks in stillness, and His stillness is stronger than any noise. He says, you are mine, not your racing heart's hearts, not your checklists, not your fears. And when you begin in prayer, you're not just managing stress, you're reclaiming truth. You're declaring with your breath what your body may not yet feel. I am covered. I am grounded. I am not owned by anxiety. Morning prayer is not optional for the weary. It's essential for the awakened. You don't need calm surroundings to access calm. The presence of God isn't circumstantial, it's eternal. It invades the clutter. He meets you in the fog and names it holy. He meets you here, and that's enough. You don't need perfect emotions to be held. You don't need clarity to be carried. The power of God doesn't wait for stillness, it provides it. If your mind is caught in the what ifs, what if I fail? What if I disappoint? What if I can't hold it all together? Pause right here. The presence of divine power interrupts the cycle. It reminds you, you don't have to predict the day, you just need to be present in it. Matthew 6:34 speaks directly to your spinning mind. Take no thought for tomorrow. That's not just advice, it's a mercy. God knows the weight of imagined futures is too heavy for you. You were never meant to live 10 steps ahead. You were meant to walk in grace, one breath at a time. This moment is your reset. God is not asking you to conquer everything before breakfast. He's asking you to trust Him with the next step. And trust doesn't always feel good. It just has to be real. Say it now. God, I don't know what today holds, but I know you hold me. That's more than enough. That's power in surrender. Let this morning be more than a moment. Let it be a movement, a shift from reaction to revelation, from panic to presence. Before your phone lights up, before the demands begin, before the self-doubt speaks, pause and let God go first. This isn't about spiritual striving, it's about sacred alignment. Fear wants to lead, but fear is not your leader. Divine power is. This is the shepherd who walks before you and carries what you can't. This is the one who prepares peace in advance. You don't have to catch up to it. It's already here. Let your breath testify. Let your stillness be worship. Let this morning prayer be more than routine. Let it be resistance. Resistance to the lie that fear gets to win. Resistance to the assumption that you're alone. Because you're not. Not now. Not ever. What voices try to speak louder than God's first thing in the morning? What changes when you let God's message come before your thoughts? Where do you need to stop performing and start trusting? Divine power holds me before fear even speaks. God meets me where I am, not where I pretend to be. I surrender the urge to predict. I choose to be present. Fear is not my leader. Divine power is. God's peace is already preparing my path. I am not alone in this moment, and I never will be. Speak this aloud. God says, "Let me go before you. My peace is your protection. My presence is your beginning." Then send this to someone who woke up like you did, tired, tense, tempted to spiral. Share the invitation. Peace multiplies when it's passed on. Psalm 91 says, "Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day." And yet, that arrow by day, it often looks like anxiety, doesn't it? It's not always war or disaster. Sometimes it's the dread of unread emails, the fear of disappointing someone, the slow ache of inner panic masked by polite smiles. But you are not defenseless. The same God who kept you through the night still covers you when the sun rises. His presence does not expire with daylight, it expands, it anchors. That's why you're here, not to escape fear, but to establish truth, not to deny the dread, but to dwell deeper. He that dwelleth in the secret place. Dwelling doesn't mean visiting peace like a weekend guest. It means living in it. This morning prayer isn't poetic fluff, it's armor. It's the spiritual act of declaring, "Before fear speaks, I let divine power speak first." Fear always wants to be the first to speak. It rushes in before your thoughts are clear. It demands urgency. It narrates your day with pressure. But God's voice waits with unwavering stillness. He says, "You are mine, not your anxieties, not your checklists, not your shames." And when you begin with Him, before notifications, before striving, you're not just calming your body, you're reclaiming your identity. This is what morning prayer is for, not as a luxury, but as survival. You are reminding your spirit who holds the authority. Divine power doesn't react, it reigns. And that reign isn't loud, it's steady. This moment of stillness is your sanctuary. The world might applaud hustle, but heaven blesses stillness. That's where anxiety begins to bow, because when God is first, fear can't lead. You don't need perfect feelings to be protected. You just need to remember who's already covering you. Some mornings feel like battle. The alarm is a signal of pressure. The day feels like a gauntlet of expectations, but God does not send you into it alone. Yea, though I walk through the valley, I will fear no evil, not because evil disappears, but because God is with you, in the car, in the emails, in the traffic. This is what makes ordinary spaces sacred, divine presence. It doesn't wait for calm, it creates it. God's message is not try harder, but trust deeper. You don't need to perform spiritual peace. You need to receive it. That's how the arrow by day loses its sting. Because it may fly, but it cannot pierce what is already covered. This is your reset. Not when everything makes sense, but when your spirit chooses to say, God, I don't need to feel strong to be safe. I only need to begin with you. If your mind is swirling with what ifs, what if I fail, what if I disappoint, what if I'm not strong enough, pause here. You were never meant to live 10 steps ahead. You were meant to walk in peace, one sacred step at a time. Matthew 6:34 says it with love and clarity. Take no thought for tomorrow. That's not about avoidance, it's about alignment. You don't have to predict the day to walk through it. You just need to walk with the one who already knows the way. Divine power doesn't require your map, it invites your trust. Say it now, God, I step into this day under your covering. I choose peace over panic. I choose you over control. And when fear tries to re-enter, you don't have to shout back. Just return here. This stillness, this truth, this sacred reminder. God has already gone before you. What are the arrows I face during my day? Where do I most need to remember? I'm already covered. What if anxiety is not the signal to fear, but the signal to pray? I will not fear the arrow that flies by day. Divine power reigns over my morning and my mind. I dwell in peace. I do not visit it. Divine power holds me before fear even speaks. God meets me where I am, not where I pretend to be. I surrender the urge to predict. I choose to be present. Speak this now. God says, let me go before you. My peace is your protection. My presence is your beginning. Then share this with someone walking through emotional warfare. Let them know they are not alone. This is not just a prayer, it's a movement. Peace passed forward, fear dethroned, truth restored. This morning, as we anchor ourselves in prayer, let us pause not only for our own hearts, but for the hearts we cannot see, those waking up beneath smoke-filled skies, behind closed doors of fear, in places where safety is not a given. Let this prayer stretch beyond your room and into the aching silence of those who suffer. Lord, we lift to you every soul caught in the crossfire of conflict, violence, and fear. Cover the innocent with your mercy. Shelter those whose names we do not know but whose pain you carry fully. Shine light into shadowed cities and war-worn places. Mend the broken-hearted. Restore what hatred has shattered. Let peace break in where destruction once ruled. God of mercy, show yourself as refuge for those who feel forgotten, and show us how to be your hands, gentle, open, and ready to love. Amen. Now breathe, because this is what it means to live prayerfully, to carry the weight of others into the presence of God, not with answers, but with intercession. Even as we return to our personal battles, that prayer reshapes our posture. You realize anxiety is not just yours, it's global, spiritual, generational, but so is divine power, so is peace. So is the presence of God, which meets not just your worries but the world's. You're not selfish for seeking calm. You're not blind to pain when you rest in God. You're becoming a sanctuary, one who carries peace into chaos. And this morning, the chaos might be internal. You may feel it already, the thoughts pressing forward, the urge to rush, the guilt of stillness, but don't move yet. Stay here. Let stillness win. Psalm 91 declares, He shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust. That image is maternal, intimate, protective. That is your refuge. Not productivity, not certainty, presence. That's where anxiety begins to dissolve, not because you force it out, but because God fills in. You felt it before, the moment your body wakes up but your soul isn't ready. That in-between space where you haven't yet spoken, but the pressure already whispers. That's the sacred moment, the altar where you get to choose what voice you follow. The one that says, you're behind, or the one that says, you're covered. Morning prayer is more than discipline. It's direction. It doesn't just lift you out of fear, it roots you in truth. Pope Leo XIII once said, "The soul at rest with God becomes a harbor for others." That's what you're building now. A harbor. A resting place. A space where peace doesn't visit, it dwells. A space where your spirit breathes deep and slow, and anxiety no longer commands the room. You're not running from reality. You're grounding yourself in a greater one where divine power is not a reaction, but the foundation of your day. This morning, stillness is not escape, it's engagement. You are not pulling away from the world, you are stepping into it with reverence, with a heart tuned to suffering and a spirit opened to mercy. This is the miracle of prayer. It reaches farther than your words, deeper than your understanding, higher than your hope. It becomes a bridge, a shelter, a balm. You are not just speaking into the air, you are standing in the gap. And heaven listens, heaven responds, because when you pray for the unseen, you join God in seeing them. And when you carry the pain of others to God, something inside you shifts. Your own burdens feel different, not because they disappear, but because they're no longer yours alone. The Spirit intercedes, the Savior walks with you, and the covering of Psalm 91 becomes not just a promise, but a present reality for your ache, for their pain, for the world God so deeply loves. Whose pain do I feel most deeply this morning, and have I brought it to God? Can I trust that my intercession has power, even if I never see the result? What might change if I carried peace like it was mine to give? God covers me, and He covers them. I am part of a bigger peace than my own. My stillness is intercession. My breath is prayer. My prayers travel farther than my feet ever will. God's mercy covers places my eyes can't reach. I am not powerless, I am prayerful. Place your hand over your heart and whisper, Lord, stretch this prayer beyond me. Let it wrap the world in your mercy. Let it find the hurting and the hidden. Let peace rise where pain once ruled. Let me be a harbor. Let me be still. Let me begin in love. Then carry that spirit into every interaction today. You are not just walking through your own morning. You are bringing heaven with you. Meditation is not an escape, it is an encounter. It's where your soul sits with truth long enough for it to speak louder than fear. In a world obsessed with noise and hustle, meditation may seem passive, even indulgent. But in the kingdom of God, stillness is strategy. It's not zoning out, it's zoning in, aligning your attention with the one who already declared your safety, your identity, your direction. God says, "Be still and know that I am God." Stillness isn't the absence of motion, it's the presence of mindfulness. You are here not because you're weak, but because you're wise enough to start your day rooted in presence. Divine power does not flow from effort, but from surrender. Meditation becomes your posture of letting go, not where you solve everything, but where you trust God to carry what you cannot. This is not spiritual fluff. This is spiritual formation. This is the secret place of Psalm 91. Becoming more than a promise, it becomes a practice. You don't need to be an expert to begin. You just need to pause. Close your eyes, soften your jaw, let your shoulders fall. Maybe place your hand over your heart and breathe. Slow and sacred. With each inhale, whisper inwardly, God, you are here. With each exhale, and I am yours. This isn't a mantra, it's a meeting. It's you stepping into alignment, not just with peace, but with truth. Truth that is stronger than fear. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. That means you don't just believe truth, you breathe it, you wear it. It surrounds you like armor. Meditation isn't passive, it's protective. Your thoughts are not the problem, they are the portal. And this practice, simple as it seems, is how you invite divine power into the space fear once occupied. It's how the noise in your head gets replaced with the nearness of God. You won't always feel it, but you don't need to. You just need to return to it again and again until your spirit learns what your nerves forgot. You're not alone. You're not your anxiety. You're not behind. The shepherd of Psalm 23 still leads you beside still waters, even if the world around you rages. Prayer speaks, meditation listens, and both work together to build a rhythm where peace doesn't visit occasionally. It stays. This is soul work. This is resistance to the rush. This is your quiet defiance against the pressure to perform. You are not just breathing to survive, you're breathing to abide. To remember your source, your identity, your safety. That's why this moment matters. It's not empty, it's full. Full of grace, full of power, full of God. The world will come rushing soon. Emails, expectations, decisions. But you don't have to meet it empty. You're already anchored. You've already surrendered what you can't control. You've already let stillness set your pace. You're not responding from stress, you're responding from presence. That's the gift of meditation. That's the strength of sacred rhythm. You are not what you accomplish. You are not what you fix. You are not what others expect. You are God's. And this breath, this stillness is not small. It's spiritual strength. So inhale again. God, you are here. Exhale, and I am yours. Let that be your grounding. Let that be your peace. And when the pressure rises later today, return to this rhythm. Let it be your rescue. Let it be your resistance. Let it be your way of walking with God when the world wants to rush you. Let it be your way of walking with God when the world wants to rush you. How does meditation help me shift from anxiety into peace? What lies has fear taught my thoughts to believe each morning? How can I practice stillness as an act of worship? When I slow down, what truth begins to speak louder than fear? What does God want to whisper into the space fear has occupied? Can stillness become my response, not just my retreat? God meets me in stillness, not stress. Divine power flows through my breath and my belief. My thoughts are not my master. God is. Stillness is not weakness. It is wisdom. God surrounds my mind with truth and tenderness. My breath is worship. My quiet is powerful. Take 1 full minute now. Inhale. God, you are here. Exhale, and I am yours. Repeat it again, then place your hand over your heart and say, this stillness is not empty, it's full of presence. Let that truth travel with you today. Let meditation move with you, not as escape, but as encounter. Pope Leo XX once wrote, divine power is not loud, it simply remains while fear tries to shout. That truth is a balm for the soul waking in panic. Because fear is loud, anxiety has a megaphone in the morning. It rushes in before thought can settle. It speaks in what-ifs and false urgency. But God does not match fear's volume. He doesn't compete, he remains. Divine power is not noise, it's presence. Lighthouse in the fog, a whisper that does not fade, a compass when your mind tries to spiral. This is the trust God calls you into today. Not the absence of fear, but the authority to stop letting fear lead. You don't need to be fearless to be faithful. You just need to follow the right voice. And God's voice is not the loudest, but it is the longest lasting. His whisper is stronger than fear's shout. Let my voice be your compass, not your panic. Sometimes we expect God to come thundering into our chaos, matching our panic with dramatic signs. But more often, he comes with stillness. Not because he's distant, but because he knows what your heart really needs. Not a louder voice, but a grounded one. One that says, I'm already here. I'm already holding you. Divine power doesn't look like emotional hype. It looks like sacred calm. It's not adrenaline, it's anchoring. Morning prayer is not performance. It's not a pep talk. It's a return to the truth that you're already covered, already seen, already safe. Psalm 91 says, His faithfulness shall be thy shield and buckler. That faithfulness doesn't fluctuate with your feelings. It doesn't rise and fall with your mood. It remains quiet, steady, sure. That is your strength today, not your ability to be fearless, but God's ability to stay faithful. And there is freedom in this. You don't have to perform peace. You don't have to fake calm. You simply need to bring your real self into God's real presence. Even if anxiety is knocking, even if your heart races, even if your breath is shallow, divine power doesn't demand a different version of you. It just asks for the honest one. And in that honesty, fear loses its grip. Because fear only has power when you believe you're alone. But Psalm 23 reminds you, Thou art with me, not because the valley vanished, but because God stayed. His staying power is your safe place. So let the fears shout. You don't need to shout back. You just need to remember who already whispered, Peace, be still. And that whisper still echoes through every anxious morning. When fear rushes in like a flood, remember, it's not truth that's loudest, it's usually the lie. Panic moves fast, it demands answers, but truth is steady. God doesn't rush, he doesn't panic, he just stays, and in his staying, there's strength. You don't need to overpower fear, you need to outlast it. And you do that not by shouting louder, but by standing firmer. The world tells you to push through, to hustle harder, but God invites you to pause, to breathe, to let silence speak. That's not weakness, it's wisdom. Because in that stillness, fear loses its voice. You're not ignoring anxiety, you're inviting it to see that it's not in charge. Divine power reigns, and that reign is quiet, but unshakable. Recopying, Silence. Reels Trake from the 2, Capture, on August 28, 2006. What do I expect divine power to look or sound like? Where have I mistaken silence for absence? How can I tune into God's whisper instead of reacting to fear's noise? How have I been measuring God's power, by volume or by presence? When I feel anxiety rise, what happens if I pause instead of push? What would it look like to trust God's silence as a strategy, not neglect? God's voice remains when fear shouts. I do not need volume to access strength. Divine power is still, but unstoppable. God doesn't need to shout to hold me. Fear may speak first, but God always speaks last. I am surrounded by faithfulness, not pressure. Next time your anxiety begins to build, pause, whisper, peace, be still. God is already here. Then sit in that silence a little longer than feels comfortable. Let that stillness be your rebellion. Let divine presence stand where fear once ruled. Let God's whisper guide what fear tried to control. What if today didn't start in panic? What if your first thought wasn't, what do I need to do, but who is with me? That one shift rewrites everything, because the way you begin is the foundation for what follows. And most anxious cycles don't start with crisis, they start with a rushed morning. You were never meant to wake up in defense mode. You were meant to wake up in divine rhythm, with breath, not burden, taking small steps to defend what matters most, breathing into center. Take thought is for Ned. With peace, not panic. God says, let me speak first. Let divine power claim your mind before your memories, your notifications, or your to-do list do. This is not about doing more. It's about doing first things first. Psalm 91 says, "He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in him will I trust." Trust is not an afterthought. It's an invitation to begin with him. Before the day speaks over you, let God speak into you. Panic feeds on urgency, but peace lives in order. And order doesn't come from control, it comes from choice. If you don't choose to welcome God into the start of your day, the world will gladly fill the space with demands. But the world does not lead with mercy. It leads with pressure, with hustle, with the illusion that your value is in your output. But God leads with presence, with gentleness, with truth. That's why this morning prayer is not a ritual, it's a rebellion, a spiritual reset that says, I am not waking up to survive. I am waking up to dwell. Psalm 23 doesn't begin with pressure, it begins with provision. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. That's not poetry, that's alignment. You don't begin today with empty hands, you begin with a full heart. So let today be different, not because the world changed, but because your center did. This time, before you check your phone, check your breath. Before you engage the world, engage the Spirit. One quiet inhale, God, you are here. One gentle exhale, and I am yours. That sacred rhythm is not small, it's supernatural. Divine power does not require a perfect setting. It only requires your presence, the kind of presence that says, God, I'm not in control of this day, but I give you control of me. That's how peace begins, not by fixing everything in advance, but by letting the first voice you listen to be love, not lack. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. That's how trust builds. And that's how fear loses its grip before it even takes hold. This is your defiance. This is your strategy. When the world says rush, you say rest. When fear says panic, you say presence. When your mind races, your spirit returns to the rhythm that began your day. God, you go first. That's how peace becomes more than a mood. It becomes your momentum. That's not magic. It's mercy. Not instant perfection, but intentional presence. You're not just surviving this morning, you're building from it. Starting with the one who holds your day before you even step into it. And from that sacred start, your soul gains its footing. Your breath becomes bold. Your spirit walks in rhythm, not in reaction. How have I unintentionally allowed panic to define my mornings? What could change if I invited God into my first thought today? Where do I need to reorder my emotional priorities? What has been shaping the start of my day, my schedule, or my spirit? How can I build a rhythm of peace instead of reacting to pressure? Where is God inviting me to dwell before I move? God is my first focus, not my fear. I begin in prayer, not panic. Divine power sets the tone of my day. My peace begins before my to-do list. I choose trust over tension, presence over panic. God's voice is my first anchor. Everything else can wait. Close your eyes. Inhale deeply and say aloud, God, you go first. Exhale slowly, and I will follow. Let those words be your pace. Let them be your protest against pressure. Then share this with someone whose mornings feel rushed and remind them, peace is not far, it just comes first. God's message today is this: surrender the illusion of control. That doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying what was never yours to hold. Anxiety loves to tell you that everything depends on you, your planning, your timing, your perfection. But divine power speaks differently. Be not wise in thine own eyes. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart. Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust doesn't require full understanding. It requires full release. You weren't made to micromanage your life through fear. You were made to walk through it by faith. Psalm 91 doesn't promise a life free from arrows. It promises shelter when they fly. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day. You don't have to dodge everything. You just have to trust the one who walks with you through it all. The illusion of control feels safe. but it's a trap. It whispers that if you just try harder or predict better, you'll avoid pain. But that's not peace. It's pressure. And pressure is not the fruit of the Spirit. Peace is. Joy is. Trust is. God never asked you to be the architect of every outcome. He asked you to abide. And that means letting go. Not in defeat, but in alignment. Divine power is not found in your plans, but in your surrender. That's why Jesus didn't say, "Make this easier." He said, "Not my will, but yours be done." That's surrender, and that's strength. You're not being called to deny your humanity. You're being called to place it in hands that are more capable than your own. The presence of God does not erase the struggle. It holds you steady inside it. So today, begin not with control, but with confession. God, I confess I've tried to manage what I can't control. I've held onto fear disguised as responsibility. I've acted like it all depends on me, but it doesn't, and I'm tired, so I surrender. Not to the chaos, but to your care. That's your prayer. That's your power. Surrender isn't passive, it's participation in peace. When you release what isn't yours to carry, you make room for what always was. Grace, mercy, shelter. Psalm 91 reminds us, "He shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust." Wings don't erase the storm, but they offer refuge in it. You don't need to control the winds, you just need to stay in the shelter. There is sacred strength in letting go. It doesn't mean you've stopped showing up. It means you've stopped striving. You don't need to preemptively solve what heaven has already seen. You don't have to hold your breath waiting for everything to work out. You get to exhale, to open your hands, to let divine power do what your panic never could. And in that holy exhale, your identity is not diminished, it's defined. You're no longer trying to perform peace, you're finally receiving it. Because God never asked for your perfection, He asked for your presence. And that presence becomes possible when you surrender, not in fear, but in faith. Where am I holding on out of fear instead of trusting God? How is the illusion of control affecting my peace? What would it look like to surrender control today? What am I trying to control that God is asking me to release? Where have I confused pressure with purpose? How would today feel different if I trusted more than I planned? I surrender the illusion of control. God is my guide. I don't walk alone. My peace is in His presence, not my performance. I let go, not into chaos, but into God's care. Peace is not something I produce, it's something I receive. My strength is not in control, but in surrender. Hold your hands open in front of you and say aloud, God, I release what is not mine to hold. I trust your will more than my own way. Let peace rule where control used to live. Repeat it often today. Let this become your rhythm. Let it become your reset. This is not the end of the plan. It's the beginning of peace. The battle doesn't always begin in the day. It begins in the mind. Before you speak, before you act, before your feet ever touch the ground. That's why 2 Corinthians 10:5 says, take every thought captive, because the thoughts you don't take captive will take you. Fear doesn't need a crisis to start. It only needs a whisper. What if I fail? What if I'm not enough? What if today breaks me? And slowly that whisper builds a momentum that shapes your mood, your decisions, your peace. But this morning, divine power invites you into a new pattern. One not driven by mental warfare, but rooted in spiritual covering. You don't fight alone. You don't carry alone. You don't plan every detail and pray God blesses it. You release what He never asked you to hold. Let me carry the weight your mind was never meant to bear. That's not surrender as weakness. That's surrender as wisdom. Overthinking often feels noble, like you're being responsible, proactive, prepared. But sometimes what we call planning is really just fear dressed up in strategy. Not all responsibility is yours, and carrying it all isn't spiritual maturity, it's spiritual exhaustion. That's why this moment matters. This morning, prayer is not just a spiritual habit, it's a rescue mission. You're not rehearsing your fears, you're remembering your Father. Psalm 23 says, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." That means you're not led by panic, you're led by provision. You're not expected to be the strategist and the sheep, you're just called to follow. To trust that divine power doesn't activate through pressure, it flows through posture. The posture that says, "I'm not certain, but you are. I'm not in control, but I'm in your care." So before the spiral starts, pause. This is your sacred defiance. Don't wait for panic to rise before you respond. Respond first with truth. Psalm 91 declares, "1,000 shall fall at thy side, but it shall not come nigh thee." That isn't poetic comfort, it's divine confidence. It's a reminder that your peace is protected, not by silence, not by circumstance, but by the presence of God. That means you can breathe again. Not because the questions vanished, but because your spirit remembered where to anchor. The mental storm may still swirl, but your soul is no longer tossed, because now you've taken the battlefield back, and you've claimed it, not with control, but with confidence in the one who fights for you. I said yes to that because it was true. The one who fights for you. This morning, your thoughts don't define you, your trust does. Let go of the habit of rehearsed disasters. Let go of the pressure to solve what hasn't even happened. Let go of the spiral before it starts, and rise up in faith. Speak this as your truth. My mind is not a war zone, it is a sanctuary. I don't follow my fear, I follow my shepherd. You're not alone in this fight. You're led, you're loved, you're covered, and that covering is not theoretical, it's protective, practical, present. Psalm 91 says, "He shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust." So trust now, trust again, trust deeply. What thought patterns steal my peace before the day even begins? How can I shift from overthinking to overtrusting? Where am I trying to win a battle that's already God's? What anxious thoughts do I keep rehearsing instead of releasing? What lie does fear keep shouting that I need to silence with truth? What would change if I believed the battle in my mind is already God's? My thoughts are not the battleground, my trust is the victory. God fights for my peace before I even rise. I release overthinking and receive his strategy. I take every thought captive and make it obey peace. Divine power holds what my mind cannot. I follow the shepherd, not the spiral. Say this aloud. God, I surrender my mental battlefield. This mind is not a war zone for fear. It is a sanctuary for your presence. I release the need to control, predict, and protect. This day is yours, so is my mind. Let it be the rhythm that carries you. Not just this morning, but every time panic tries to rise. Peace isn't passive, it's practiced. And today, you've already begun. Psalm 23 declares, "He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul." That isn't just poetic comfort, it's a divine strategy for right now. Because anxiety will convince you that peace is far off, reserved for those who have everything figured out. But God says otherwise. Peace is not a destination, it's a presence. And that presence is already here, not after the chaos ends, not when the calendar clears. Now, right here in the stillness of your spirit and the slowing of your breath. You don't have to silence every thought to be led. You don't have to feel strong to be safe. You just have to surrender. Divine power isn't asking you to map the path, only to follow the shepherd who knows the way. Even when your emotions don't, even when your body is tense, even when your heart still wonders, the invitation remains. Walk with me. Let peace go before you. Let restoration rise within you. When you this morning isn't asking you to perform, it's asking you to be led, not by pressure, not by panic, but by presence. That's what "He leadeth me beside still waters" really means it's not a future hope, it's a present mat. God's peace doesn't wait for things to settle down. It shows up in the middle of your uncertainty. While your thoughts race, while your spirit quietly asks, "Am I already behind?" That's where the shepherd leads, not from behind with commands, but from ahead with calm. Still waters aren't just physical, they're spiritual. They flow in your heart before they flow in your world. And they're here, waiting, not for your perfection, but for your permission. Peace isn't passive. It's not just the absence of stress. It's the presence of a shepherd who never rushes. And restoration, it's not delayed until you earn it. It begins when you return, when you stop sprinting and start following. That's the holy exchange. Your tension for his tenderness, your rush for his rhythm, your fear for his faithfulness. Psalm 91 echoes it too. "He shall cover thee, and under his wings shalt thou trust." This is what stillness does. It doesn't erase responsibility, it reshapes it. It reminds you that you're not walking alone, you're being led. And as you follow, peace doesn't just visit, it dwells, it surrounds, it restores. So let's pray together. Lord, I don't know what today will bring, but I know you are already there. Lead me beside still waters. Restore my soul before the world tries to drain it. Let my steps move in rhythm with yours, not because I'm confident, but because I'm covered. That is your posture. That is your peace. You don't have to chase stillness. It will meet you the moment you choose to follow. And today, following peace is your first and most powerful act of faith. You don't have to carry it all. You only have to be led, and in being led, you are restored. Where in my life do I feel like I'm leading instead of being led? What would it look like to walk at the pace of peace today? How does it change my morning to remember that God restores before I even move? Where have I rushed ahead, forgetting I have a shepherd? What parts of my soul are already tired before the day has begun? How can I live from the stillness of being led, not the stress of being in charge? I am being led beside still waters, even when I can't see them. Peace is not a place I arrive, it's a person I follow. My soul is being restored, not by effort, but by God's grace. God restores me before I move because He loves me, not because I earned it. Stillness isn't a pause button, it's the posture of trust. Today I walk in peace, not because of my pace, but because of my shepherd. Place your hand over your heart. Whisper, "Lord, lead me beside still waters. Let your rhythm become my reality. I surrender my rush and choose your rest." Then move slowly into your next step. Let peace walk ahead. Let grace follow behind. And remind someone else today, you're allowed to walk, not sprint. Peace isn't earned, it's followed. Even the strong feel anxious. The ones who lead, the ones who counsel, the ones who pray. The ones who carry others through storms often carry silent weight of their own. So if you woke up today with a racing heart or restless thoughts, you are not the exception. You are not broken. You are becoming. Anxiety isn't a flaw in your faith. It's a signal that your soul longs for something deeper than understanding. It longs for presence, for reassurance, for peace that no amount of performance can produce. And that's why God doesn't wait for you to fix it all. He meets you here, right in the middle of your trembling. Divine power says, "My strength is made perfect in weakness." 2 Corinthians 12:9. That means your weakness isn't the place God avoids, it's the place He begins. You don't have to feel strong to be held. You don't have to be fearless to be faithful. This morning, stop asking, "Why am I still anxious?" and begin asking, "Where is God meeting me in this?" Because He is. He doesn't require emotional perfection. He simply asks for presence. Not your performance, not your productivity, just your honesty. The shepherd doesn't follow from a distance. He leads. even when your steps feel uncertain. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. Psalm 23:6, that includes this one. You don't have to feel settled for God to be near. You just have to stay open to the truth that He already is. And sometimes that's the truest form of faith. Not confidence, but closeness. The kind that says, God, I don't have all the answers, but I know where to turn. And that's what morning prayer is, not the absence of struggle, but the presence of surrender. So be honest. Let the pressure go. You don't need to look brave right now. You don't need to appear okay. You need to be held. Divine power is not for the perfect. It's for the present. For the one who says, God, I'm still here, still reaching, still believing, even when I don't feel it. That kind of honesty is holy. That's the moment where anxiety loses its authority. Not because it disappears, but because it meets something stronger. God says, I see the places you hide your panic. I hold the thoughts you're too tired to explain. And I choose you still, not because you're strong, but because I am. You don't need to be the hero of your story. You already have one. Where am I still believing that anxiety disqualifies me from God's presence? What would it look like to receive His strength in my weakness today? How can I show myself grace when I still feel unsettled? Where have I felt the pressure to pretend I'm fine? What would shift if I believed anxiety doesn't exclude me from intimacy with God? How would I treat myself differently if I truly trusted grace over grit? My anxiety is not my identity. It's the place where God meets me. Even the strong feel anxious, and still God calls them beloved. His strength rises when mine runs out. God's love meets me before I feel worthy of it. My anxiety is the place where I lay down pride and pick up presence. I am not holding myself together. God is holding me. Say this aloud. Lord, I don't have to feel strong to be loved. I receive your strength in my weakness. I release the pressure to be okay. I am yours. Then, send this prayer to someone who looks strong but may feel overwhelmed. Let them know grace meets us where performance never can, and it's more than enough. Breathe. You're not late. You're not behind. You're not forgotten. The anxiety that wakes you with urgency, the racing thoughts that whisper you need to catch up. Those voices are not from God. They are echoes of fear, not faith. And this morning you are invited to interrupt that narrative. Divine power does not measure you by your pace. It anchors you in grace. He shall give his angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. Psalm 91. That means even when you feel slow, unclear, or overwhelmed, you are still being kept, still being guided, still being covered. Let that truth settle deeper than the rush. God is not in a hurry. His peace is not behind schedule. You are not behind. You are being held. This morning is not a race. It's a return to truth, to presence, to the voice that whispers, you're safe, you're seen, you're still mine. The pressure to be perfect by sunrise is not from heaven. Perfection is not God's priority. Presence is. He's not asking you to accelerate your healing or prove your value through productivity. He's simply asking you to come close, to slow down, to remember that grace moves at the speed of peace, not panic. Divine power meets you exactly where you are, not where you think you should be. Pope Leo the Captive said it best. The soul anchored in divine timing will never drown in delay. You're not falling behind. You're falling into alignment, into healing, into the arms of a God who governs your unfolding. This sacred stillness isn't wasted time, it's holy time. The breath you take right now in surrender is more fruitful than any hurried plan. God doesn't just move through your effort, He moves through your openness. He responds not to your pace, but to your presence. Right now, he's whispering, "I'm here. I'm enough. You're safe." That whisper is stronger than the voice of your deadlines. It is your anchor when the world tells you to hurry. It is your covering when anxiety tells you to perform. Let that be the pace that defines you today. Not your checklist, but your communion. Not your rush, but your rest. So pause and say this aloud. Lord, I release the lie that I'm behind. I surrender the timeline I thought I had to meet. Let me walk with you, not ahead of you. Let your pace become my peace. This is your holy interruption, your divine correction. Take one slow breath, then one gentle step, not in a rush, but in rhythm. Let peace go before you. Let grace walk beside you. And if someone you love feels behind, share this with them. Let them know they're not too late. They're being led. Peace isn't passive, it's powerful, and it always arrives on time. Where have I been rushing that God might be asking me to rest? How does it feel to trust divine timing instead of personal pressure? What do I need to hear from God before I move forward? What part of me still believes I'm not moving fast enough for God's plan? Where do I need to stop forcing progress and start trusting presence? What pressure can I lay down in exchange for peace? I am not behind, I am being refined. Divine power holds me steady in every delay. God's timing is my peace, not my pace. My worth is not measured by my speed, it's grounded in God's love. Even delays can be divine. I'm not behind, I'm being carried. Let those truths carry you today, not just through your schedule, but into your spirit. Peace has a pace, and it's always worth following. When your mind feels like a storm, it's not because you're weak, it's because you're carrying weight that matters. You feel deeply, you think thoroughly, you prepare for disappointment, rehearse conversations that haven't happened, and live on high alert, even when nothing has gone wrong yet. That isn't failure, it's sensitivity. And God sees that. He doesn't rush you out of the storm. He steps into it with you, maketh the storm a calm, so that the waves thereof are still. Psalm 17:29. Divine power doesn't demand your stillness before showing up. It becomes your stillness in the middle of the chaos. This morning, you're not asked to silence your thoughts. You're invited to let God enter them. That's not avoidance, that's alignment. That's the beginning of peace, not when the storm ends, but when God sits in the center of it with you. Anxiety often masquerades as logic. It tells you that overthinking is responsible, that rehearsing worst-case scenarios is smart. But the truth is, mental strain is not the same as spiritual strength. You weren't created to survive by managing every variable. You were made to trust. You were made for peace. And that peace doesn't show up after you've solved everything. It shows up when you surrender everything. That's why this morning prayer matters. It's not a technique. It's not a fix. It's a holy exchange. You're spiraling for His presence. He shall cover thee with His feathers. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. Psalm 91. That's not poetic comfort, it's divine reality. You are not what you fear. You are not what you feel. You are the child of the one who commands peace. So stop trying to forecast your thoughts like weather patterns. Peace isn't something you predict, it's someone you invite. Don't wait for your mind to settle before you reach for God. Reach for Him now. While your heart races, while your thoughts spiral, while the inner noise makes it hard to breathe. Say it even now, God, the storm is real, but so are you. Be my calm, be my clarity. I invite you into every anxious thought today, because divine power doesn't move in after the storm. It shows up in the middle of it, and it doesn't fix by force. It heals through presence. You don't have to manage the storm. You only have to surrender to the one who already holds it. This moment is not about mastering your mind. It's about meeting God in it. Your thoughts don't scare him. Your panic doesn't push him away. In fact, your vulnerability is sacred ground. It's where trust is born. It's where your faith stops being a concept and starts becoming your covering. And even if nothing around you changes today, something within you can. You can carry calm, even if the storm continues. You can walk with peace, even if your thoughts still whisper fear. Because God is here, not just watching, but holding. Not just guiding, but grounding. What storm is raging in my thoughts this morning? What would it look like to let God sit in the middle of it? How has anxiety been masquerading as protection? What mental burdens have I been trying to carry alone? How has overthinking disguised itself as responsibility in my life? What changes when I stop managing and start surrendering? My mind may be loud, but God is louder in love. I do not have to solve the storm. I invite God into it. Divine power calms me, even before the storm ends. I am not my thoughts. I am held within God's. Peace is not something I earn. It's someone I welcome. The storm may not be over, but I am already safe. Place both hands over your heart and whisper, Lord, the noise is loud, but you are louder in love. I give you my spinning thoughts. Be my calm in the chaos. Then write down one thought that's been tormenting you. Hold it. Lay it down. Let it be a symbol of surrender and the start of stillness. Peace begins here, and you are not alone in it. And anxiety is loud, but God's peace is louder, not in decibels, but in depth. Anxiety shouts with urgency, fix this, prove yourself, hurry up, you're not enough. But peace, real peace, speaks with quiet authority. Be still, you are mine, I am with you. That's the sacred exchange offered to you this morning. Not the absence of emotion, but the presence of a greater voice, one that doesn't compete with fear, it overrules it. Psalm 91 promises, He shall deliver thee from the noisome pestilence. That's not just physical, it's mental. The inward noise, the spiral of thoughts that try to set the tone of your day. But this is why we pause in prayer, not to perform, but to return. To remember that divine power doesn't promise fear won't speak. It promises fear won't win. You don't need to silence anxiety. You just need to listen deeper. This morning, you don't have to shout over your fear. You don't have to fix your environment or tidy your mind before you find calm. You simply have to make space for the voice that remains. Because peace isn't something you find after everything is resolved. Peace is the companion that walks with you before resolution ever comes. It's what Pope Leo Caxtoris meant when he said, peace is not found in the clearing of all obstacles, but in the clarity of who walks with you through them. God's peace doesn't wait until you win the battle. It sets a table in the middle of it. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Psalm 23. That includes enemies within, fear, anxiety, overthinking, shame. And God is not in a hurry to rush past them. He invites you to rest in their presence, not because they're harmless, but because He is greater. You are not required to fight your fear with noise. You are invited to face it with stillness. Divine power does not demand you eliminate the storm. It invites you to dwell in the center of it with Christ. This is your rhythm now. Breathe. Listen. Return. Return not to perfection, but to presence. Return not to control, but to the calm of surrender. Psalm 91 says, He shall cover thee. His truth shall be thy shield. And today, that truth is this. Peace isn't a destination. It's your starting point. It's not what waits for you at the end of your to-do list. It's what welcomes you at the beginning of your breath. To pause right now and say aloud, Lord, you are not in a rush, so I don't have to be either. Let your peace steady me. Let your voice lead me. Let stillness find me again. Then sit in that space, not to earn calm, but to receive it. Peace isn't passive, it's powerful. It's not the absence of fear. It's the presence of God within it. And this morning He is speaking stillness over every storm in your soul. How does anxiety try to control the volume of my morning thoughts? What deeper voice might I be missing beneath the noise? Where can I create space to listen for God's peace today? Where have I let anxiety dictate my mental pace today? What if peace isn't something I need to create, but something I simply allow? What am I being invited to release in exchange for stillness? God's peace is louder than my panic. I do not need silence to be still. I need surrender. Divine power prepares peace for me even in pressure. God's voice steadies me even when fear is shouting. Peace is not a condition, it's a companion. I carry calm because I carry Christ. Now turn down the volume of everything else for 1 minute. No phone, no distractions, just stillness. Share this sacred space with someone who woke up overwhelmed, and let them know. Peace doesn't wait, it welcomes. You don't have to earn stillness, it's already been offered. You don't have to prove you're calm, holy, or grateful enough to receive peace. God doesn't distribute rest based on your performance. He gives it because of His promise. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. That's the invitation hanging over this very moment. Not to be better, just to be still, just to return. Anxiety thrives on striving. It loves when you think peace is a reward you have to work for. But divine power speaks differently. It says, peace is your portion. Stillness is your inheritance. You don't have to earn what I've already given. Morning prayer doesn't ask you to fix yourself. It reminds you to return to the one who already holds you. In a world of expectation, God offers exhalation, and that's where peace begins, not with doing, but with dwelling. Let stillness speak louder than your schedule. Let grace interrupt your urgency. Stillness is not the reward at the end of hustle. It's the rhythm that leads you into presence. Psalm 23 begins not with motion, but with mercy. He maketh me to lie down. That isn't suggestion, it's intervention. Sometimes God has to stop us before He can restore us, because we confuse productivity with purpose, hustle with holiness. But you are not more loved when you move faster. You are most like Jesus when you know how to rest. Divine power doesn't require more effort, it invites more surrender. And this morning, that surrender sounds like a simple yes. Yes, Lord. I'll slow down. I'll be led. Stillness is not weakness, it's worship. Let's rewrite this morning, not as a race to begin, but as a return to presence. You are not behind because you paused. You are ahead when you align. Divine power is found in the humility that says, Lord, I cannot carry this pace, but I will follow your peace. That is your protest against pressure, your stand against striving, your sacred yes to grace. You don't need to conquer your day to be kept in it. You don't need to rush into purpose to be anchored in it. You just need to remember you are already seen, already loved, already held. And this stillness, it was made for you. Say this now, Lord, I surrender the pressure to prove. I receive your gift of stillness. Let this quiet place be my starting place. Then place both hands over your heart. Breathe. And be. You don't have to do anything else for this moment to be holy. This stillness is already filled with presence. Share this with someone else who feels like rest is out of reach. Remind them, stillness isn't earned, it's given, and it's more than enough. Where have I mistaken busyness for spiritual success? What would change if I began each day from a place of stillness? How is God inviting me to lie down, not rise up in this season? Have I been measuring my value by my output instead of God's love? What does it mean for me to let stillness be my first act of worship? How is God using this morning to slow me down and speak to me? Stillness is not something I earn, it's something I receive. God makes me lie down, not rise in panic. Divine power flows through my pause more than my performance. I begin in stillness, not because I'm finished, but because I'm found. God's peace is my starting point, not my finish line. I am not behind, I'm anchored. Let this truth hold you, and from this stillness walk into your day, not rushed, not reactive, just rooted, just real, and completely ready. His power is made perfect in weakness, not in your plans, your poise, or your productivity. That's what grace looks like, not strength that comes from you, but strength that carries you. My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Corinthians 12:9. Let that truth settle as this new morning rises. You don't have to hide your fragility. You don't have to cover up your cracks. Divine power shines brightest through what you're tempted to conceal. Your weariness isn't a flaw, it's a doorway, a sacred entrance where God's presence rushes in, not to criticize, but to carry. You don't need to wake up strong, you need to wake up surrendered. And in that surrender, His strength begins to bloom. Let your weakness speak, because heaven is listening. You don't need to rehearse strength you don't feel. You don't need to armor up with artificial confidence. You only have to be honest. That's the sacred entrance to grace. Honesty over image. The world applauds those who power through, but God draws near to those who fall open, who whisper, God, I can't carry this anymore. And in that whisper, feel themselves being carried. This is why morning prayer is so vital. It's not where you pretend to be okay. It's where your need becomes your offering. He shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust. Psalm 91. That covering isn't a reward for the resilient. It's a refuge for the real. So this morning is not about gathering yourself. It's about giving yourself. All of you. The hurried parts, the numb parts, the tired and tender parts. You don't have to organize them, just offer them. Divine power isn't waiting for your polish, it's waiting for your permission. To enter the places you've hidden, to shine through what you thought disqualified you. You're not too broken to be blessed. You're exactly the kind of heart God blesses. The kind that says, I don't have the strength, but I know you do. I'm not enough, but I know you are. That's where everything shifts, not in your circumstances, but in your spirit. You are not holding yourself together. He is. And when the pull to perform returns, when the fear creeps in that your weakness might make you unworthy, remember this: divine power doesn't demand perfection. It dwells in your ache. It meets you in the tension. It fills the gap between your doubt and your hope. It whispers, you don't need to be strong today. You just need to stay close. So stay close, not with effort, but with honesty. Not with answers, but with availability. Because that's where miracles begin. What weakness am I trying to hide instead of offering? Where has my need become a barrier instead of an invitation? How does it feel to know that divine power begins where mine ends? Where am I afraid to let others, or even God, see my weakness? What would change if I believed my need was holy ground, not failure? Can I trust that His strength is already here, even if I feel undone? His power is made perfect in my weakness. I don't need to be strong to be held. Divine power is not earned, it is received. My weakness is not a flaw, it's where God meets me. I am not held together by my effort, but by His grace. Every fragile place in me is a place of potential for divine power. Now close your eyes, open your hands, whisper this: God, I surrender the pressure to be strong. Be my strength where I can't. Let your power be perfect in me today. Then move forward, not with force but with faith, and remind someone else, weakness is not the end. It's the beginning of a miracle. This morning prayer is your refuge, not because it changes your circumstances, but because it recenters your soul. The world you're waking up to may still be chaotic. The messages waiting in your inbox may still be stressful. The responsibilities ahead may still feel overwhelming. But right here, in this sacred pause, He is my refuge and my fortress. My God, in him will I trust. Psalm 91. A fortress doesn't prevent the storm, it protects you in the midst of it. And a refuge doesn't demand credentials, it opens its arms to the weary, the anxious, the undone. That's what this prayer is, your place of safety. Not because you are strong, but because divine power covers you when you can't cover yourself. This is your holy ground, right here in the stillness before the rush. While the world demands urgency, your soul longs for anchoring. And that's what this morning prayer offers. Not escape, but encounter. Not denial of what's ahead, but a deep reorientation of what's within. You're allowed to come into this space, messy, anxious, numb, tired of pushing through. You don't need to edit your emotions to meet with God. You just need to arrive. And when you do, He covers you. Not because you've earned it, but because He's promised it. You were never meant to be the one holding everything together. That's what divine power does. It wraps itself around your weakness and says, I've got you. You've tried coping strategies, you've tried distractions, you've tried pretending everything's fine, but none of those offer what the presence of God does. True rest. You weren't created to be your own shelter. You were created to dwell in one. This is not weakness, it's wisdom. Even Jesus withdrew to lonely places to pray. Even He sought the presence of the Father when the world pressed in. If the Son of God needed stillness, so do you. Let this be that moment. Let this be your return to the secret place, not hidden from the world out of fear, but anchored in it by faith. Peace is not a privilege you earn. It's a promise you receive. So breathe, not as a technique, but as a declaration. I am safe here. I am seen here. I am not alone here. This isn't just another moment to check off. It's the doorway back to who you really are. Beloved, held, guided. This is not the end of your struggle. It's the beginning of your strength. Not because the load disappeared, but because you're no longer carrying it alone. And when you leave this sacred pause, you don't leave the refuge, you carry it into the noise, into the stress, into the conversations and crossroads. The fortress goes with you, because God goes with you. Where have I been looking for safety outside of God's presence? What would it feel like to truly dwell in refuge instead of just visiting it? How can I carry this peace into the rest of my day? What anxiety have I been holding that God is ready to hold for me? What if refuge was not a break from my day, but the way I lived it? How might today feel if I let peace lead the way? This morning prayer is my refuge and reset. I dwell in peace. I don't just borrow it. Divine power shields me, even when life swirls around me. This moment recenters me in God, not in pressure. I carry peace because I am carried by divine power. God's refuge is not a place I visit. It's where I belong. Place your hand over your heart and whisper, Lord, you are my refuge. Be my peace through every part of today. Keep me anchored, covered, and close. Then share this stillness with someone who needs it. Let the calm you've received be the invitation they've been waiting for. Peace isn't something we hoard. It's something we pass on. Walk into this day covered by divine power, not clothed in fear, not wrapped in pressure, not hidden behind perfectionism, covered by grace, by strength, by peace. He shall cover thee with his fetters, and under his wings shalt thou trust. Psalm 91. This isn't symbolic fluff, it's spiritual armor. Armor that guards your mind, shields your heart, and surrounds your soul. When anxiety says you're exposed, God says you're hidden in me. When fear whispers you're on your own, God declares, I go before you. This is how we walk today. Not braced for battle, but wrapped in trust. Not fueled by self-reliance, but sustained by presence. The world teaches you to prepare for pressure, to armor up emotionally, to brace for rejection, to lead with polished strength. But divine power offers a better way. Not walls, but wings. Not hardness, but holy softness. This doesn't mean you won't face tension, but it does mean tension won't define you. You walk under covering now, a covering that doesn't fade with the afternoon, a presence that doesn't end when you log off or walk in. Pope Leo the Taxor said it well. To walk in divine power is not to escape the world, but to carry heaven through it. That's what you do today. You carry peace into chaos. You carry heaven into heaviness. You carry refuge into your routine. So pause again. One sacred breath before the day continues. Picture God's covering not as armor you earn, but a promise you dwell in. Covering over your mind, your responses, your schedule. Let each step you take become an affirmation. I am not alone. I am not unprotected. I am not under pressure. I am under promise. This isn't superstition, it's sanctuary. And it moves with you, through the doors you dread, into the conversations you fear. Divine power is not a backup plan. It's your beginning. Where have I been preparing for battle when God has already promised peace? What would it look like to let peace be my preparation instead of panic? What spaces in my life need heaven's presence carried into them today? How can I remember I'm not walking toward pressure, I'm walking with protection? I walk into today covered by divine power. I don't face the world, I follow the shepherd. My strength is not what I carry, but who carries me. I am not walking into pressure, I am walking under protection. Today is not about proving I am already provided for. Divine power is my covering, not my backup plan. Say this aloud now. God, I release the pressure to perform. I walk forward under your wings, not my worry. Let your peace lead me, clothe me, and remain with me. Then take one steady breath and one steady step. Share this covering with someone who needs to remember they're not walking alone. Let them feel what you now know. You are already covered. Reflect plus receive plus rest in the shelter of God. That's how we end. Not with striving, but with stillness. You didn't just listen to words this morning. You entered a spiritual shelter, a sanctuary where your anxiety was seen and your weakness honored, where divine power wasn't demanded, it was offered. And now, before you rush into the day, pause here. Reflect on what stirred, what softened, what settled. This reflection is more than a moment. It's how peace sinks deep. Psalm 91 promised you wouldn't fear the arrow that flies by day. Psalm 23 reminded you that you are led beside still waters. These weren't just verses, they were anchors. Hold them close. Let them echo inside you when the noise outside returns. Let them be the whispers that speak louder than the thoughts trying to pull you back into panic. You don't need to perform to keep the peace. You only need to return to the shepherd. You didn't strive for this shelter. You surrendered to it. You didn't build it. It was waiting for you. Divine power wasn't something you had to grasp. It met you the moment you made space for it. What have you received today? Not just truth, but transformation. Not just scripture, but sanctuary. You've received space, breath, grace. You've been reminded that you don't have to carry what was never yours. That anxiety is not your identity. That weakness is not a flaw. It's a gateway. That divine power isn't a burst of emotion. It's the constant presence of God, even when you don't feel strong. And now as you go, carry that truth with you, not as a task, but as a gift. You are not exiting this moment alone. You are walking with the one who covered you before you ever opened your eyes. Psalm 91 and Psalm 23 weren't just referenced, they were realized. They breathed their truth into your soul this morning. They clothed your worry with protection. They reminded you that your shepherd leads and stay, that even if the storm outside persists, the storm within can still be silenced. Because peace doesn't vanish with the end of this prayer, it goes with you. Rest now, not in escape, but in embodiment. Throughout your day, pause and remember. Peace is not earned, it's remembered, it's chosen, it's protected. Divine power has gone before you. Mercy follows behind you. You are surrounded. covered, held. This morning was not just a ritual, it was a return. And you are free to return again and again. Every anxious thought is an invitation. Every moment of panic can become a moment of peace if you pause, reflect, receive, rest. That's how you begin. That's how you remain. Let your stillness travel with you into every hallway, every inbox, every decision. Carry it like a light. You don't have to defend, only protect. Divine power isn't a morning feeling, it's a daily fortress. And when the world pulls at your peace again, as it will, don't panic, just return. You've already been here before. And this shelter, it never closes. What has God revealed to me through this morning prayer? What stillness did I feel in God's presence today that I don't want to forget? What practical way can I return to that stillness when the noise begins? How has God's presence redefined how I carry myself today? I reflect, not to rehearse fear, but to remember peace. I receive what God freely gives, grace, truth, stillness. I rest under divine power, not as a visitor, but as a child. Peace is my rhythm, not my reward. I walk with the God who covers me, constantly and completely. Take one deep breath. Whisper aloud, God, thank you for being my shelter. I carry your peace, not as something I found, but as someone I follow. Then gently send this to someone who needs a sacred reset today. Let them know peace isn't far, it's waiting in the shelter, and the door is still open.